Hello and welcome to the MMQB NFL podcast. I'm Conor. Albert Breer is here. We are back. I'm not going to say rested from a week after the Super Bowl, but I feel a little less tired than I did in New Orleans. How are you doing?
I'm good, and I can't complain to you based on where everything is at home for you right now. But it always does fall where school vacation is. So that's always the week before the combine, which is great because I get to go skiing with my kids. And I love skiing. Nothing clears my head like skiing. It gets me kind of refreshed, and it's a good reset where my phone doesn't work up on the mountain. But I will say, like, my body in my mid 40s does not respond quite the same way it used to that sort of activity. So I had like a day of soreness in there. I had to kind of work out.
A little bit. That's what they make a leave for. Are you an Aleve guy now?
Aleve is good. Yeah, Aleve is good. My wife has like these giant ibuprofens that look like horse pills. And those
stuff.
are effective. Those are effective too. I don't know how, like, we're like a minute into this now. We haven't addressed the elephant in the room, which is what's on your upper lip.
Yeah. So for those of you who are not watching on YouTube, you should be. And I have a mustache, and I'm workshopping it. And so here's my thought. So what Albert alluded to, things going on at home. I mean, we are between hours, days, minutes, and seconds from a baby. We don't know when
this podcast could wind up.
I mean, this could end up being a quarter of a podcast, right? Yeah. Because of that. And that's the magic of it. Like, there's an induction date, but then, there was a false alarm last night. So we had the crew here, and we had everything packed and ready to go. And then, it turned out not to be. And, my wife was worried about me being, upset about it. And I was like, this is the best. It's like life's true surprise, and so I'm enjoying every minute of it. Obviously a little bit more than she is at this point in time. It's our third, so it's not like it's we've been down this rodeo. But the reason for the mustache is it's a bonus baby, and so my friends and I from high school, we always talk about how our dads, if you look back in family photo albums, just had the best A+ 80s facial hair when they had us. And, like, our dads all had, I mean, we're also from Pennsylvania, so it's a little bit different, but for everybody. But
like Tom Selleck, is that what we're talking?
Yeah, like we're talking about like Magnum PI stuff. We're talking about handlebars. We're talking about all sorts of stuff like that. And so my one friend who had his first, and I don't know how he was able to pull this off, but he went full on dirt stash for the first baby, and he's like, I wanted to have my baby in the picture with like the horrendous mustache. For the third, I just told my wife, I was like, listen, like, let's just see how it looks, and let's workshop it. And so today, I had handlebars a couple of days ago. Today, I've really like cleaned it up.
You had the handlebar. You went down. How far are we talking? Going all the way down to the jaw?
Handlebars went all the way down to here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had the handlebars the other day. They're really hard to keep straight, by the way.
Are they? Because you have to like kind of.
You really got to eyeball it, but then, you got to be careful because you're looking at your face in the mirror, but you could be tilted one way or the other. And then all of a sudden.
I think I'd cut the crap out of myself if I was trying to like maintain a handlebar,
Well, there's that. I mean, that there's that element of it for sure, and there's also like picking your daughter up from enrichment, and people, look at you in a different way. Maybe we shouldn't let this guy be around our kids anymore. And so that is the reason behind the mustache. I said to my wife, though, I just before we came down to start taping this, I really fleshed it out. I gave it a good comb. This would kind of be stage ready. And I looked at her and I said, I think this is going to scare the shit out of our new baby daughter. And so I'm probably going to get rid of it. But I don't know. It's one of those things. It's like, who gets in a GM's ear before the draft pick? If the friend text group starts being like, you're a fraidy cat if you don't do it, then I'm going to do it because you have to do it. If your friends call you,
call you out. Yeah.
There's a different word than fraidy cat that they'll probably use, but like,
different kind of way of referring to a cat.
Anyway, so that's
Yeah.
that's the impetus behind the mustache and the fact that every day here is a high wire adventure. But we're gonna get into it. Albert is on his way to Indy. I am obviously coasting into the land of paternity leave, and
How
so
long has
I
it been since you missed one? Like, and obviously this is the best reason to miss one, but like, what, like, how long has it been since you weren't there at all?
I've been to every combine since 2010, 2011,
Okay.
2011.
Okay.
So I have not missed a combine since 2011.
So
God, that
13
sounds
in a
crazy.
row. Yeah.
My
I
God.
my first one, so my first year covering the league was '05, but I was at a suburban paper that didn't really travel much. The first one I covered was for the Dallas Morning News, and that would have been in '08. Oh my God. This is my 18th combine. Oh my God. Yeah. My combine trips are now an adult. So that's kind of scary. Anyway, yeah, but it should be a fun week. It'd be weird not to be there for sure. I'm sure it is for you too.
Oh, that's not true. I missed the other one. I missed two. I missed two in 13 years. I missed one after the first Chiefs Niners Super Bowl because my friends call me patient zero for COVID, but I had vaccine, like legitimate Miami Super Bowl strain of COVID, and I couldn't move. And
Yeah.
and we didn't know what it was, and I was gonna get on the plane. And I remember
Which
calling my editor at the time and being like, "Hey, I just don't think this is a good idea." I would have wiped out all of NFL media.
which by the way, like I do think like looking back at that combine, like I got sick after that combine. I know a lot of other people that did. And there were like, that big hall where you run into people, right? Like in the convention center.
Oh yeah.
And so, like, you usually see people, whatever, shake hands, bro hugs, all that stuff. And like there were a few guys that were doing the elbow thing then. Everybody remembers the elbow thing at the beginning of COVID, but that was before people were taking COVID seriously enough. And so it was like almost like, haha, yeah, real funny. And like a couple of guys were like, no, like this is really like a serious thing. And shout out to those guys because they were right. Because I think that was like, well, was that a week or two before? That was a week or two, I think, before the Rudy Gobert thing.
Oh
And
yeah.
and after that combine, me and my wife did a little getaway weekend in New York, and I think we went and saw a play. Which one? It was that Hamilton.
Hamilton.
And yeah,
Okay.
we went and saw Hamilton in this like really cramped small theater. And
It's perfect.
yeah, so like I took like what I got at the combine into like probably the worst environment I possibly could have. So um I'm Connor, I very well might have been part of the problem.
I had that first strain, and I had not been that sick in my life, and I couldn't get up off the couch.
Yep.
Like I was just laying around. My body was shutting down. And in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking like, God, I do need Eric DaCosta for something. So I'll probably just try to make my way to LaGuardia. Like I would have just wiped out the entire,
Yeah.
which by the way, okay, I need to make one more point and then we're going to start talking about, actual football. It finally came to fruition this year. And I do wonder if we're going to see any changes on this. I've been saying this for years. I probably said it to you for years. Opening night. Every one of these players is shaking our hands at the opening night at the Super Bowl. Every one of these players is shaking our hands. And then this year, illnesses just rippled through both of the locker rooms before the game. I wonder if that is the last time we're going to have free reign access to everybody before the Super Bowl.
I don't know. That's a good question. That was like, this has been a weird winter that way though. Like I've gotten sick. Like when I was younger, I never got sick. Then I got a little older. And like since then I've gotten sick like once a winter. I feel like I've gotten sick like 3 or 4 times this winter. And I think it's like, and you see it with the kids too. There's a lot of crap floating around out there this year for sure.
All right.
Anyway,
before
we covered the mustache, which I think it was Arthur Smith that said that it's not just facial hair, it's a lifestyle, and you're embracing that lifestyle now. And we've covered COVID and the COVID combine, and now the 2024 strains of whatever the hell is out there. And now we can get on to football.
Yeah. Be safe out there, everybody. Especially with Albert walking around. Just kidding. So quarterback carousel, I want to get to that. And then we're going to get to some of Albert's takeaways, which you should all be reading at si.com. This is the week where I feel like we're going to have, this is where it has to happen, right? Yep. Unless, of course, and I know that you had written about this. I know that a couple people have written about this, but if you look at the way that the Rams acquired Matthew Stafford, this happened before the combine. The seeds were laid before that. Everyone was on vacation in Cabo, just letting loose and hanging out and saying that Jared Goff can't take us to the promised land. So my guess is that a lot of these conversations have happened already, right? Yep. Now they might get formalized, finalized, but for you, what is the most interesting part of the quarterback carousel at this point? Like, what is the biggest domino that you can actually see moving that all of a sudden starts to break apart the landscape and shift
is there any question?
Right.
It's Matthew Stafford, right?
Right.
Yeah. I think Stafford's value is enhanced by the weakness of the draft class at the position. Right. Look, just about everybody I've talked to about this, not over the last week, but over like the last 6 months, has told me the first 3 picks in last year's class, based on where they were last year, not how they played this year, but based on where they were last year at this time, would be the number 1 overall pick in the 25 draft. And there are some people who like, whether it's JJ McCarthy, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, other guys more than the guys that are available this year too. So that's sort of what you're looking at with Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. And depending on where you're at with it, Jackson Dart, I think is
big Jackson Dart guy,
maybe closer to Shedeur in some teams' draft rooms.
I agree with that, by the way,
than people realize, and so I don't think every team at the top is going to say, yeah, all these guys suck, we're not taking one in the top 10. But there will be teams that need quarterbacks that will look at it that way. And we'll say, we don't want to be looking up that mountain. And, of what there is, especially if you're an AFC team, if you're looking up at Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, doesn't the equation, if you're Cleveland or Tennessee, have to be is Cam Ward ever going to be good enough to play with those guys? Is Shedeur Sanders ever going to be good enough to play with those guys? And if they're not, then I think Stafford becomes an option for some of these teams. If you're a rebuilding team like Tennessee, probably not. But if you're Cleveland or the Giants, it's can we find a way to get that done? Can we find a way to get Matthew Stafford here?
This basketball season, when your favorite stars score buckets, we're alley-ooping you an opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? You can with Underdog. To play, choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats, like points, assists, rebounds, and more. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, win up to 1,000 times your money. Turn $1 into 1,000 just with your hoops knowledge. This week on Underdog, I'm looking at Luka Doncic and the Lakers, higher than 20 points. Rudy Gobert and the Timberwolves, lower than 10 rebounds. Download the Underdog app and sign up now using promo code MMQB to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun when you sign up with promo code MMQB and claim your special offer today. Get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit. You must be 18 years or older, 19 years or older in Alabama or Nebraska, 19 years plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply, void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
And so, yeah, I think Stafford, the situation in Los Angeles is not in a great place. It's a tough 6-month negotiation last year that really resulted in a Band-Aid deal, not a solution. And now they're back at the table. And I mean, I don't know how many people know this, Conor, but Matthew Stafford has had permission to talk to other teams for over 2 weeks now. This didn't just happen. So, and they still haven't come back to the table with the Rams and worked out a deal. So that sort of gives you an idea of where it is. And I think really going out there and getting a look at the Steelers and the Browns and the Giants and the Raiders and other teams and what they might be willing to do has cemented his thought that, yeah, I belong in this group of 9 quarterbacks that's making over $50 million a year. So if you're the Rams, how do you put the toothpaste back in the tube? It's challenging, and we'll see if they can do it this week.
What is it ultimately money? I mean, is that it? I mean, it's just I want to be paid commensurate with the top of the quarterback market.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's money. It's also that water under the bridge,
Right.
And it's I hesitate to say it's like, cause money kind of like, if you call it money, then you're almost paying the players greedy. And I don't think that's what this is.
For sure.
I think this is more, look, the market has changed. I know my value to this team. I know my value across the league. I know where I am, and I want a market correction on my contract. And with 2 years left, Matthew Stafford's well within his rights to go back to the Rams and ask for that market correction. So I think on one hand, for the Stafford camp, it's the contract they did last year, right? It was a $5 million raise on paper, but really you were borrowing $4 million from this year and another $1 million from next year to get that $5 million. So for that to actually have been a raise, right? Like for that to stand as a raise, he needs another raise after it.
Correct.
Otherwise it wasn't really a raise. You're just moving money around. So that's sort of part of the big picture of all of this is, Matthew Stafford's deal is $40 million per year. And that is well below where the quarterback market is. It's 50% below what Dak Prescott's making. And on top of that, like his cash this year is $27 million, which is less than half of the top of the market. And it's there because you borrowed money last year to make him whole last year. So that's complicated. And I think for the Rams, part of it is we're in a much different place than we were 2 years ago. We're one of the youngest teams in the league. We've got all of these young pieces and Puka Nacua and, and Kyron Williams and Byron Young and Jared Verse and Braden Fisk and Kobe Turner. We're much younger than we were, a couple of years ago. And we're willing to do something to make you whole, but we don't want to go year to year with you anymore. Like if we're going to go year to year, would we be better off going and say, having Aaron Rodgers come and be the Band-Aid for a year, and maybe he's willing to come in at a lot less than Matthew Stafford wants. It's complicated by all of that. And once you let him walk out the building and, because the timelines of the team and the player don't really match up and he gets to see what else is out there, it becomes really hard to reverse that if there's something out there that confirms a player's belief in his own value, if that makes sense.
Aaron Rodgers is interesting to me in LA specifically because Aaron has never really been a part of an offense. And if you look back at the Mike McCarthy years, it bears that out in Green Bay. If you look at how Matt LaFleur's run-pass ratio has changed since Aaron Rodgers has left, if you look at the Jets having the absolute worst run-pass ratio in the NFL last year when Aaron was effectively calling plays, do you get the sense that Rodgers would submit to McVay as a play caller and be like, okay, you clearly know what you're talking about when he hasn't real, and I'm not saying hasn't, but he had some really good play callers in the past, Albert. I mean, Matt LaFleur and Mike McCarthy.
Who's one of McVay's best friends in the business?
LaFleur.
Who was McVay's first offensive coordinator in LA?
LaFleur.
Who's McVay's current offensive coordinator?
LaFleur's brother. Yeah. So I would assume
that's why I think they can make it work. You know what I mean? Like that's why I think you look at it and say yeah, this could work.
Sure.
And what if he's willing to come in for a lot less because it is Los Angeles and he does want to stick it to the Jets and he does want to show like everyone he can still play? I mean, I don't think this is a guy who thinks differently. You know what I mean? Like, so
Clearly.
I mean, like he didn't take a discount with the Packers. He didn't take a discount with the Jets. But I mean, like, could this be like, is he just the guy who would be like, F them, I'm going to take less and go play for the Rams?
Mm-hmm.
Is he just that guy? He might be. I'm not saying he is. He might be. Lives in LA. A lot of ayahuasca retreats in that general part of the country, right? Like Arizona's right there.
Let's look. Ayahuasca, Los Angeles, California. Ayahuasca retreats. Oh, Santa Clarita. Look at that. Although, according to KCRW, SoCal ayahuasca retreats can bring healing, Albert, but not all are safe.
So here's the thing. Here's the math on this, to me at least. If you're the Rams and you say, okay, like Matthew wants 50, and I'm not saying that's his number, but like let's just use that as a working number. Matthew wants 50. Aaron is willing to come in for less than half that.
Right.
Let's just play this out that way. So do we go with Matthew at 50 or do we go with Aaron at half that plus picks coming back for him?
Right. And I mean, listen, it's not, this thing didn't work out flawlessly with the idea that he was going to mentor Zach Wilson, but what, maybe you get a guy in the second round and you see how it goes if you're the Rams, and then kick the can ultimately, because Matthew Stafford in 2 years you're going to be back at the table with the same problem, right? I mean,
right.
So,
and I mean, like, I think McVay really likes Jimmy Garoppolo too. Like, and I know that's like sounds crazy after the last couple of years Jimmy's had, but like if Jimmy's healthy and you have him then in the building as a potential bridge, whether it's with Rodgers or without, like, do you have like at least like some infrastructure there where it's like, we're not going to fall off the face of the earth completely at the position. Like, we've got enough here where we can at least tread water and give ourselves some time to find the next guy,
we're going to play.
It's just tricky. But like if
it is,
but if Matthew Stafford can't say to you, like, because he doesn't know, and at his age he has every right to feel this way, but if he can't say to you like, yeah, I'm going to play another 3 years, and he's been beat up,
sure,
like, then your timelines don't really match up, and I think that's the challenging thing for the Rams. Like, this to me is like, this is almost like, this is like no one's fault that this is happening this way, but it is really messy right now.
Just to put a bow on this, and then we're going to play a little game. Ayahuasca retreats are kind of iffy because the issue here is that the really good ones you have to be referred to. Now, I'm sure Aaron Rodgers can get a referral.
Like members only?
It's kind of a members only thing. And so the ones that advertise apparently are the ones that you have to be concerned about. So I'm on Ayahuasca FAQ on Reddit. So just throwing that out there for everybody. And I know my company's going to be thrilled that I've thrown this all into the mix in terms of my browser.
I mean, I would think like Arizona would be a big like area for
sure, like
Nevada.
Oh, what's Sedona? Yeah, out there. That makes sense.
Where's Walking Stick? Is that
Walking Stick is in Scottsdale.
Okay. I thought that
it's Talking Stick.
Talking Stick. Okay, that's what it was. Okay. I've never lived in the West Coast, so I get things mixed up out there. For sure.
Talking Stick is nice, by the way. Now I'm Googling.
Yep.
I could use a vacation. Not going to happen once the third kid arrives, I don't think. So, let's play a little word association. I'm going to run down a few quarterbacks, and we're going to give our best guesses right now, and then we're going to talk about some other stuff. These to me, and if I'm missing anybody, let me know. These to me represent the top names on the quarterback carousel this offseason, the people who will come to define this. Again, and just to add to what you said, Albert, I have heard Jackson Dart as QB2 on a lot of on some teams' boards. I have heard that people like Cam Ward. Shador is kind of like he's really got to be in the right situation. And this is what I have not heard, but I'm just going to kind of fill in the cracks here. If you have a quarterback that you're not 100% sure about, and then you take Shador in the second round, do you want Deion Sanders on first take saying that Shador is better than the guy that you have under center? And can you assure yourself that that's not going to happen at some point during the season?
Can you imagine if Shador started falling on draft night?
Well, he's not going to the draft, so
no. But can you imagine what that would be like, though? Like Deion tweeting, that could get kind of crazy.
I mean, ESPN is just like, yes.
ESPN would be. Can you imagine if he fell out of the first round altogether? Like the first take on Friday morning.
I mean, you remember what they did to poor Geno Smith? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, this is. I genuinely feel bad for Shador because I don't think
because he didn't sign up for this.
He didn't sign up for any of this, right? And you have to almost lean into it and be cavalier about it because what other choice do you have? And it's just the whole thing's complicated. But I think that there are people who like Cam Ward. I could see Cam Ward going round one and nobody else.
So I think Cam Ward, DJ, and everybody can check out my combine preview / draft overview that I do every year. Two of the guys that I think are the best, like Daniel Jeremiah and Todd McShay, buddies of mine that I think are basically the same level of evaluators as scouts.
Yes.
And DJ had a interesting, we were talking about that AFC dynamic, right? Like with Allen and Mahomes and Jackson and Burrow, right?
Mm.
And he said, I think because of that, if you're in the AFC, you have to chase ceiling. And I thought that was interesting. He goes, Shador's the floor guy, Cam's the ceiling guy. So he's like, you have to chase ceiling if you're in the AFC, which I think was an interesting way to put it.
That is an interesting way to put it, right? And I mean, it's sort of, I remember when, we had talked about the Deshaun Watson thing a while ago, right? And not to excuse it, but that was probably the Browns' frame mindset at that point, right?
They're chasing ceiling. That's exactly what they were doing.
You have to do it. Well, you don't have to do it, and clearly they're paying the price for making the decisions that they made. But
that was the logic.
That was the logic, right? So with that in mind, we're gonna rattle off some names, and we're going to figure this out together. The first one I have here is Sam Darnold. Just first team that comes to your mind for Sam
Raiders.
Darnold. Me too.
I think he's a good fit for the Chip Kelly offense. I think if you're talking about trying to get the most out of him, what Kevin O'Connell did really well. And you give the other guys their credit too. Wes Phillips, Josh McCown, Grant Udinsky were all part of it. They got him playing fast. That was the whole thing. Get him playing fast. And I think that's what Chip's offense does for a quarterback is Chip's offense is simple. And it puts the weight of the complexity on the coaches and formationing and tempo and all of that different stuff. And so I think Sam would be a really good fit because I think that offense would get him playing fast. The other one that to me is the obvious one is the Rams. If Stafford's gone, I could see the Rams looking at it and saying he played in Kevin O'Connell's offense, he played in Kyle Shanahan's offense, he could fit here.
Yeah, I like everything about Sam Darnold to the Raiders. I floated that.
The other one I have just in the back of my head is Tennessee with him. If they decide they're not taking a quarterback.
Do you think that Darnold, though, that's my question, right? Is what kind of faith do you have in Brian Callahan? What kind of faith do you have in the roster?
Yeah, so here's what I would say. I think for a team like the Raiders or the Titans, Sam Darnold to me could be what Alex Smith was in Kansas City.
Okay.
With Andy Reid. That's sort of I think the way I would look at it. And Alex Smith was great for them. He bought them time to find Mahomes, 5 years. I think they were in the playoffs 4 of those 5 years. Is that correct? I think it was 4 of the 5 years that he was there. They were in the playoffs. And they were competitive, and it allowed them not to overreach for a quarterback because they were on level ground at the position and build up the rest of the roster. And then, when the time came and they saw something that was truly special out there in Mahomes, they got aggressive and went and got him. And as a result of waiting, they'd already built up the rest of the roster. I think the logic of doing what Kansas City did could be there with Darnold for a team like the Raiders or the Titans that are a ways away from true contention.
All right. Sam Darnold either in Tennessee or in Las Vegas. I love like the whole West Coast vibe of having like Chip Kelly, Pete Carroll, Sam Darnold, everyone together, all my favorite people. I don't know. I'm having a hard time moving off that. All right. We'll save him for the end. Russell Wilson.
I think everybody's going to put him in Vegas. I don't know. Do you have a team?
Here's my caveat, right? Because I think I have another team. I think I have this team going somewhere else, but then perhaps Russell Wilson is your backup if you're Brian Daboll, is your plan B.
Yeah, I can see that. That makes some sense. I just don't know. I mean, so I don't think it'll be Pittsburgh.
No.
There were a lot of people in that building already who wanted to move on. I don't know if you saw the Jerry Dulac story that came out during Super Bowl week, but when you started to see some of like the details kind of coming out on Russell's frustration, it was like, okay, like that probably shuts the door.
For sure. I mean? Yeah. And this has happened everywhere he's gone. Right. Everywhere he's gone.
And it's like why? Like I for the life of me, I still don't understand like what other teams aren't going to see that as a positive. You know what I mean? Like other teams are going to look at that and say, I don't want that to be us. So
no one's going to be like, yeah, for the third time, you're right. It's not your fault.
Right. I just don't know. Because I don't think he can go anywhere as a backup. So I don't know. He's got so much pride. I think in the right situation, he can still play a little. Maybe Brian Daboll and the Giants would make some sense.
If they swing and miss on Stafford.
Right.
Which is kind of what so this next one is my favorite.
And that's where I think if Stafford changes teams, I think that probably, like my guess would be that'd be the most likely team he lands with.
I agree. This next one's my favorite, and I think people are fading this guy like crazy because I think he was unhealthy this year, and I think that the offense didn't suit him, and I think this guy can throw for 4,000 yards next year, and that's Kirk Cousins. I don't understand for the life of me the amount of hate and vitriol that has come out on this guy because he had, first of all, he threw for like 500 yards and 5 touchdowns in a game this season. He's hurt, and that offense was not suitable for him. And I'm not making excuses for Kirk Cousins. The athleticism is limited at this point in his career. But if we're talking about Aaron Rodgers being this guy that we can't live without, or at least a guy that we can make the playoffs with, I think Kirk Cousins offers almost the same skill set in terms of quick release, in terms of fast decision-making, in terms of processing at the line of scrimmage. I think Kirk Cousins is a legitimate QB1 option for a lot of teams this year.
All right, so I think most people are thinking the same thing with him, which is Browns. It just makes too much sense. He's got the relationship with Stefanski in place. And, based on their assessment, which I think there's like some mixed opinion in that place on what Cousins has left. It just, the economics of it make too much sense because you're going to get him for the league minimum. And the Browns need to be creative in the way they make this work because of all the guaranteed money that they're still on the hook for with Deshaun Watson. So how can you work around that? Well, this is the perfect way to work around it, is to go and get a guy in Kirk Cousins who knows your offense, who can kind of stabilize the position a little bit, which has been incredibly unstable since the minute Deshaun Watson got there. And can he approximate the level of play you were getting from Baker Mayfield? I think probably. It kind of gets you back up to level ground if you're the Browns.
Close enough, though.
I don't want to sell Baker short, but
right.
Kirk's played at a really high level. And I do think that there's that thing with Kirk where it's like, look, like the second year coming back off the Achilles for an older player. I think with Aaron Rodgers, it's going to come into play too. Like I do think that is a factor. I also think the fact that one thing that was really undersold with Kirk, I think, was that it was his plant foot. And like that, if you look at the history of it, quarterbacks coming back off that injury the first year, they really have trouble driving the ball because their plant foot isn't quite the same because the Achilles happened in the plant foot. And so I do think there's like logic where you could look at it and say, you know, a lot of things conspired against Kirk last year. And no, he's not going to be able to rewind and go back to being the guy who was, 5 years ago with the Vikings, but like he should be better in 2025 than he was in 24.
I agree. I think everybody's fading these guys both. But that's just me. I think that Kirk Cousins is valuable. I had him. I think Mike McDaniel should go for it, but and just have him on the roster.
That'd be
have someone
too.
to compete with Tua. Now, do I think that's going to happen? No, I think that Mike is maybe perhaps loyal to a fault at this point, but
Yeah.
I've also
It's hard
been
for Mike though, because I think Mike has built his play, like his whole program has been based so much on building relationships and trust. It like it can be really hard to break that. You know
Sure.
what I mean? Like so, I think that relationship they have is kind of it's a really strong relationship, and I don't know that Mike would want to mess with it unless it was like some sort of like just clear upgrade.
I know this one's gonna be tough for you, but Justin Fields, and he can't go back to Ohio State. So that's
I'd take
part of
him for next year. I take him for next year.
it. We're not that far away, honestly, are we? From like teams, like college teams, being able to just sign 33-year-old, and I'm not saying Justin Fields is 33, but just like Terrell Pryor being able to just go back to Ohio State and play
Like,
quarterback
well, yeah,
again.
like some 33-year-old going to court and like Ohio State's willing to pay him $4 million.
Please.
And he get a law degree out of it too. Yeah, I think I personally think there's a good chance Justin winds up back in Pittsburgh.
Me
He's
too.
got good relationships there.
I hate that we're agreeing so much, though.
I think like the thing about this one is like he's got his faults as a player. He is a Steeler though. Like he was a Steeler before he became one, just in his mentality, the way he carries himself, who he is. And I know they'd like to keep working with him. Now, there's levels to that. Are they going to keep working with him as they're no doubt about it starter? I don't think that that's the plan. But would they like to keep him on the roster and say they were able to get Stafford, right? Would it make sense for them, like say, like, hey, Justin, if you can't find a starting job out there, come back and develop here for another year. Come back and work with us for another year. And like, if we like what we see, like maybe the handoff happens in a year or two where you become the starting quarterback after Matthew Stafford or whoever else they might bring in as a veteran. Like, I think that there's a lot of good logic to the idea of Justin Fields going back to Pittsburgh in some capacity.
I love Matt Stafford in Pittsburgh. I love it. And I know I don't think it'll ever happen, but I just like the idea of it. And I think that takes that team into a holy crap level of or at least like moderately interesting, right? Where they're not going to crumble down the stretch like they have in recent years. Their Decembers have been kind of tough. But so let's get to that one.
What about Justin Fields with the Jets?
I mean, the Jets need to, and we haven't brought them up at all, and they have said goodbye willingly to Aaron Rodgers at this point. And so, I mean, Fields does make sense, but it's like, what would you, if you had the choice to start for the Jets right now, or to back up Stafford in Pittsburgh, or just you get the chance to compete for the starting job in Pittsburgh, wouldn't you stay in Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, at what point are we going to realize, and maybe this year is kind of the nice runway year where Woody Johnson knows he's on blast for interfering as much as he has, and maybe he takes a step back, and maybe you really do give Justin Fields time to develop, but we still don't know. I mean, Tanner Engstrand's the new offensive coordinator there. He comes from that Lions team that just had tools on top of resources offensively. And I'm not saying he's not a good offensive coordinator. I don't know what he's going to be. But Justin Fields doesn't know that either. Justin knows what he has in Pittsburgh. He knows he has Art Smith. I think Art Smith probably wants to work with Justin Fields. I think Art Smith likes Justin Fields. All of that said, But the Jets do need a quarterback. Like at some point, we have to bring them up. And it's interesting to me that they have not yet come up because there doesn't seem to be, after everything that they've gone through with Zach Wilson and everything that they've gone through with Aaron Rodgers. And, I wonder how it echoes
Trade
throughout
for Hendon Hooker or something. You know what I mean? Like,
but God, if you're Hendon Hooker, wouldn't you try to stop that too? And it's just, and this is nothing against Aaron Glenn. And at some point, someone's going to come in there and figure it out, and is going to be the guy that fixes all these problems, right? No team can go unfixed for centuries,
Right.
At least I don't think so. But maybe if there is a team that could do that, it's the Jets. I don't know, but. I mean, and there is always that perpetual attractiveness. Like some of these quarterbacks have that alpha mentality where it's like, yeah, I want to be the guy that does that.
Yeah.
I want to be the guy that changes everything. I want to do that. But I don't know, man. If I were him, I'd probably stay in Pittsburgh. But it's interesting that we should keep that in the back of our minds because the Jets do need a quarterback. They're one of these like 6 teams that probably shouldn't draft one in the first round, but that desperately need him. Let's get to the big 2. So you mentioned Matthew Stafford. I mean, Matthew Stafford's brother-in-law is now coach for the Giants. Is that a situation where we can plug that in and it makes some sense? I don't know.
If you're the Giants and like do you trade your 26th first-round pick and like a 3 this year for Stafford?
Do you think that's what it's going to cost?
Well, I mean, like, if you look, like that was sort of the Stafford deal in Detroit, minus the extra first-round pick. It was
right.
A 3, a 1 the year down the line, and then another 1 after that. Like the price isn't going to be that high this time around, I don't think, because of his age. But I mean, like if the Giants could wind up holding on to Stafford, or getting Stafford and holding on to the 3rd overall pick, now all of a sudden, like they could do some fun stuff there, So I don't know. Like I like the idea of him in New York. I like the idea of, Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen saying, okay, like we're closer than people think, and this is going to show it. And Stafford can like run the full-on Brian Daboll offense, which puts a lot on the quarterback, right? Like the quarterback is responsible for a lot in that scheme. And okay, now we're maximizing Malik Neighbors, and now maybe Cooper Kupp comes with him. And now do we have Travis Hunter on the team? Like, now we have Andrew Thomas coming back at left tackle. It's like you start to look at it and it's like I don't know. Maybe this is me and my PTSD from having picked them as a surprise team last year, which was so horribly wrong.
Me too, dude. Me too.
But I just like look at the players they have on their defensive front. I look at the fact that they lost their left tackle last year, which created a tire fire on the offensive line. I look at like the year Malik Neighbors had, even like Tracy as a young running back, you know what I mean? Like, and they get crushed, rightfully so, for Saquon, but they have a promising young running back now. They don't feel like they're very far away to me. They just don't, and if you could plug Stafford in there, I think it would show. Although that division is more difficult. That division looks like it's going to be pretty tough.
But is it though? Because we've fallen into this trap so many times before, right? And I have to talk some of my, one in particular, Giants fan friend off the ledge on a constant basis, because I remember the same conversation we had in 2018 is the same conversation we have now. They're set up. The Eagles are set up. They're going to be dominant forever now. Like everybody's under contract and they're young and everything's perfect. We have no idea what's going to happen. I projected the Commanders to miss the playoffs next year because a lot of those veterans are going to go away. We have no idea if Jaden Daniels is going to be able to throw a Hail Mary in week 6 and change the tenor of their season, right? If they lost that game, Albert, and if Brian Daboll had a kicker in 2 of those Giants games, we'd be talking about the Commanders not having made the playoffs this year, right? And so I think we all need to wake up to this idea that I called it with the Texans and I wasn't exactly right, but you can't tell me that the Texans had a great season this year either. There is no linear path here. Like for any team in the NFL, this stuff is really complicated. There's all these emotions and interpersonal issues. If Brandon Graham leaves the Eagles and maybe he was the guy holding it all together, I don't know. I can't say for one way or another, but I don't know. I'm ready to get my heart broken by the Giants again because I picked them to win 9 games last year, and boy, does that sound exciting. Because now, I didn't even think about Cooper Kupp, right?
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp comes to the Giants. You have Malik Neighbors is already there. Oh, and that's not an out of Giants.
It's not like far-fetched.
It's not an out of Giants box to check, right? Like that. If you think about it, if you're John Mara, it's like, okay, the Aaron Rodgers thing would
now
be
you
an
have Hunter at corner and he's moonlighting on offense.
Would you think so? You play him on both sides?
I think, yeah. I mean, I think Hunter. I can't wait. I'm really excited to talk about this guy for the next 2 months because there's 20 years covering this. There's never been anybody like him. I think like his experience at Colorado is instructive to like the way he's going to be used in the NFL, because what people don't realize is like they were sort of like what we've all talked about, like corner and then package player on a receiver, right? That's sort of what they were doing at Colorado, because during the week you have to budget his time, right? So he spent most of his time in defensive meetings because, I mean, Conor, you know this, like you can't really package a player on defense. You can on offense. You can't really do that on defense. Like you're either part of the defense or you're not, you know?
Right.
And so they had him do meetings and everything else and be part of the defensive group. And then on offense, he was a package player on offense. It was just they had enough where he could be out there all the time, and they would signal routes into them for the sideline. So he was doing that at Colorado, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably what he becomes. And you're going to have to see over time, like what that looks like. And I think like what he weighs at the combine too, like this week, like that's a sneaky thing to pay attention to too, because that could tell you a little bit about how he's going to hold up. You know what I mean? Like, is he 180 or is he 195? Like that's relevant, like, because I mean, that's going to play into how much you're able to use him out there without really risking injury. It's interesting. I'll point you back to my column again with DJ and with Todd. I believe Todd's comp. Yeah. So Todd's comp for him as an offensive player, for Travis Hunter as an offensive player, was Garrett Wilson. DJ's comp was Devontae Smith and Darius Slay on defense. So that's what I'm saying. We've never seen anybody like this. You know what I mean? Like there have been guys like Adoree Jackson, Chris Gamble, obviously Champ Bailey, Charles Woodson, if you want to go way back. Like there have been guys who did it at college, but I don't think there's been anybody like this.
Man, could you imagine? That'd be fun. We're in this age now where whatever, right? Shohei Ohtani. We can have Travis Hunter. We can figure it out in a football perspective.
I mean, the league's got to be rooting for it, right? Now, I don't know if it's the best. The question is it the best business decision for him? You know what I mean?
Right.
That to me is like, that's the question. But I mean, I don't know. Is Matthew Stafford and Travis Hunter a better kind of package than just taking Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders third overall? I don't know.
I'm excited about the offseason now. This is fun. This is fun. See, this is why we do this. This is a fun exercise. Yeah. Okay, so the last one is Aaron Rodgers, or as they call him here on New York Talk Radio, Aaron Rodgers. And so it's so interesting, right? Pittsburgh, and he could pair with Pat McAfee universe member Art Smith, and they could be on the Pat McAfee show together in Pittsburgh. That would be fun. They could do joint appearances. You have Los Angeles. You don't have, Tennessee, and this is something that people brought up, Rodgers just being on the McAfee show for the next 2 years, and every time a team has a shitty quarterback, him being like, well, maybe they'll call me, and just enjoying that part of his life. I don't know. I mean, he could just walk away. He's a very successful man in his early 40s who has ideas and hopes and dreams to go elsewhere. But man, if the door just cracks open even slightly on the McVay front, or even on the Kevin O'Connell, what if everything goes haywire with Darnold? They don't love, they don't love Daniel Jones. I don't know. I'm just, there's a ton of options here.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
There's just so much hypothetical with all of this. I think that is really gonna, I think gonna be fun to dig through over the next we're really over the next week, because in a lot of these cases, you need answers before the start of the league year, which is what? Is it 3 weeks or 2 weeks from Wednesday? I think it's 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I think it's 3 weeks. I have to look at my unfortunately, they don't mark it as a holiday in the Apple calendar, but it's either the 12th or the 19th. I think it's the 12th, actually. I think that's right. So, anyway. This is awesome podcasting when we're...
The only way it would be better is if I was chewing gum during it, just really loudly into the microphone. Just like...
and talking about a mustache that most people can't see.
You know what, though? It's the problem with it, and I'll filibuster while you look this up, is I used to be a big beard guy before I lost the weight, because the beard masked the double chin.
Yep.
And that was a big thing for me. And so I went all in on that, too. I had the beard oil. I had the whole thing. But that presented a lot of its own problems, too. And I ended up really not liking that. And so my facial hair is just very, like, sharp. And it's almost knife-like, and it's also very uncomfortable, which is like an underrated part of this. So
mine is blotchy and all over. It's like thick in like certain spots, and then like non-existent in others.
I couldn't see you with a beard or a mustache or anything.
I
could see you with a mustache. You could pull off a mustache.
Maybe I'll try that at some point.
I was gonna say, just give it a go.
I would love to hear my wife's opinion on that.
Freak out the whole family one day.
Yeah, it was funny. Everybody I know who has grown a mustache, like one of the first things they bring up is how their wife hates it.
Oh yeah, mine is appalled. Yeah. Right?
It's like this. It's like every wife is like in this state of like almost like disbelief that their husband did that.
I mean, it's so crazy,
Maybe I'll do it just to see her reaction. That would
just give it a shot, because you'll be away at the combine for the week, and then you come home and just
surprise.
Just like surprise. I don't know. Just show up, be like, hello. Right? All right. Give me your best guess for Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, Rams or Giants, I guess. I don't know. I mean, would the Jets let that happen again? Like the revenge factor. I mean, I don't know that the Jets can really do anything to stop it if they're going to release him.
I do think I would wonder if, like, John Mara is such like a classy individual. That would be like a shot across the bow. Like that would be a hard shot across the bow, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Like that would be an aggressive shot across the bow.
And Aaron does like New York.
What's not to like?
Yeah. So, I mean, anyway.
I urge you all to continue this conversation with SI.com. Read the rest of Albert's takeaways. Albert has some great storylines to watch here at the Combine. He will be there all week. Matt Verderam will be there all week. Me and Gilberto, we're in babyland, and so that's where we're going to stay. I thought about just,
it's an exciting time. Like I still remember when my second kid was born, Drew. I was hacked. Me and Frank Caliendo. You remember this? Me and Frank Caliendo were hacked by like some porn site or something like that, who started tweeting out links. And so like we're in the delivery room.
Oh, that's a good place.
And no, it wasn't. It was whatever. Like the room they put you in after the baby's born. So Drew's like a day or two old. And like all of a sudden I look down at my Twitter and like I see that I'm tweeting out all these like porn links. So anyway, I can't get into my Twitter account, and I needed to I was new at SI. I was like I think if I remember right,
that's awesome.
I was like less than 3 months in at SI, and so I had no idea who to go to or anything like that, and like what are my new bosses who just hired me gonna think, and so like I'm like all over the place, and like, what's wrong with him? Like, you know what I mean?
His kid was just born. That's kind of weird.
But the funny thing is, like, so like afterwards, I said to Emily, I'm like, you know what? Like, if you believe in like cosmic stuff or whatever, Drew is going to grow up to be hilarious. And I'm telling you, he still hasn't heard that story, but he is the most effortlessly hilarious little kid I've ever
That
been
is
around.
awesome.
And so, like, just at like doesn't even have to try to be funny, And I think maybe that is the upshot of getting hacked by a porn site while your child is less than a week old.
I can't say I'm going to try it over the next.
But if you Google my name and Frank Caliendo's name, you will see it. It was a rough few hours for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna hopefully stay off. Do you tweet the photo? Do you not tweet the photo? I said this time I'm just gonna relax. I'm gonna enjoy it. Didn't think we were having a third anyway, so this is a very fun adventure we're gonna go on.
I've pulled way back on social media with my kids because I've just sort of come to
it's a dark place.
Now I've just kind of come to like the point where I'm like, who is this for? Like, if I have something if I have something with my kids that I want, when my kid scores goal in his lacrosse game or scores a touchdown in his football game, like, why am I putting it up on social media to share with people, or am I pounding my chest? And the people who need to see it, I can just send it to them. So, try to be a little self-aware with that.
Well, as it goes, I will bid the podcast adieu here for the next 2 weeks. Albert will man the helm without me. He'll be back next week with a full wrap up of.
And hey, everybody out there, please, you know where to find Conor. You can all send him and Allie well wishes. I know he loves being inundated with tweets and messages and stuff. So there's no better way to wish him luck and wish he and his wife and his baby good health than flood him with messages.
That's it. DMs are closed. Thank you guys so much though for everything. Like for serious. And I will. I'm gonna take a couple weeks off. I'm gonna enjoy everything. Gonna figure out life with an odd number, and then we'll be back. We'll be back for free agency.
And I have given Conor this advice. 5 is an awkward number when it comes to buying a car. When it comes to vacations, 5 is an awkward number.
We're going to figure it out. Just like the Rams, just like the Giants, just like the Jets, just like Aaron Rodgers. We will figure it out.